just gotta hope. Okay, hopefully this is actually working. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Ring of Fire again, and hopefully, I guess technically it's not really within a week, but I tried. I had an idea for something, thanks to a comment someone left on my last video, but a bit distracted lately, so, oh well. So, WinterWham, eh? Yes, that's very ingenious of me. But it's winter where I live, so, you know, it's not really much of a SummerSlam, is it? Yeah, I wanted to do a predictions video purely for the sake of doing something, and just really because I haven't done one in a while. So, here we go. And the funny thing is I haven't been following WWE pretty much at all for about a month or two. Like, usually I'll at least follow on with what's happening. I haven't really been paying attention, aside from one guy's review show, Mark Muse, his Raw reactions. That's pretty much all I've been getting my WWE info through. That and other people. But yeah. So let's see. Cesaro versus Rob Van Dam is going to be the pre-show match. What? Are you serious? Like, I get it's random, and that's why, but... Well, actually, you know what? Fuck it. That's a better example of what a kickoff, pre-show, whatever you want to call it, match should be. Random. It's not a feud match, because a feud-related match should be happening on the full thing. This Cesaro-RVD match came out of fucking nowhere, so... speaking of, before I get to the main show, and you know, I can't really pick who'd win out of Cesaro and RVD because they decided that they didn't want to have Cesaro being a Heyman guy anymore, so he's, from what I can tell, pretty much been jobbing since. So it's pretty much anyone's ball game. WWE actually has 8 proper, actual main show card matches set up for this show. Well, 7 really, because let's face it, Brie versus Stephanie, that's not going to be a match. So, you know, like that. I hope that goes under a minute. I really do. But more on that later. Yeah, it's surprising to me that they actually have 8 matches, or 7, lined up for the pay-per-view. Because maybe they actually cared because it was SummerSlam, so they actually threw together 8. But, well, 9 if you count the pre-show. Because a few months ago, they were struggling to get 5. So this is interesting. They suddenly stopped caring about other pay-per-views, and then they realized, fuck, SummerSlam's coming up. We better actually, well, not really put much effort into the card, but at least make one, make a full card. So with that out of the way, I'm just going upwards in the Wikipedia list that I'm looking at. So let's see, Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins in a lumberjack match. Really, the only benefit of that being a lumberjack match that I can see is either A, Seth Rollins diving out onto a group of people just for the sake of attacking Dean Ambrose, or Ambrose doing the same thing. B, Ambrose just randomly beating the shit out of people for no real reason. Because, come on, it's Ambrose. They kinda have to do that. Who do I think? I usually do a who do I think versus who do I want to win sort of thing with these kinds of thingies, predictions. But this is hard. Ambrose or Rollins? God. Let's say who I think will win, Rollins, because, well, fuck, he needs the momentum. Ambrose, I want to, just because it'd be interesting, and it would possibly even set up a match they could have later on, either on Raw or SmackDown or in the next pay-per-view, where Ambrose goes, okay, I beat you, let's see how good of a Money in the Bank holder you are. You put that up for grabs. I mean, they have had matches where people have put the Money in the Bank contract on the line, so it stands to reason that they should do it here. I would have Seth keep it, but, you know, it'd be an interesting way to go. Miz versus Dolph Ziggler, I don't care. I'm just going to tell you right there, I don't care. I don't really care about The Miz. I never really cared about Dolph Ziggler. So, I'm really not looking forward to the match. Ambrose and Rollins I'm looking forward to. Especially since they, well, they didn't give it to us last time. So now, if this match doesn't deliver, then these two guys are fucked. Now, let's see. Yeah, Miz Ziggler, Intercontinental title match. I don't really care who wins, so I'm just going to say who I think will win, and I will say The Miz. Speaking of, I really hope one of these days someone makes a thing like, you know that going into the ad break thing Everybody Hates Chris had, where it was like this sort of soulful version of them just sort of singing the name of the show? Someone needs to do that for Miz. Like, Everybody Hates Miz. That'd be hilarious. Yeah. Miz, yeah, he's winning, as far as I'm concerned. Dolph Ziggler winning would be an interesting surprise, but in a way, I like Miz as a heel, so I'm going with him. So there's that. He's a terrible face, my God. But that's a whole nother conversation. Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. Who I want to win, Reigns. Who I think will win, you know what, Reigns. Randy Orton really doesn't need it. Unless they're gonna, God, I hope they don't. Unless we get Cena Orton in September, I honestly think Reigns is gonna win this. And you know what? I think Reigns getting a one-on-one title shot against Cena could be interesting. Because, let's face it, it's basically a number one contenders match. It's a glorified number one contenders match, but they're just not touting it as such. So apparently the entire storyline behind this is that apparently Reigns is the one standing in the way of Randy's title shot. I don't see how, but okay. AJ Lee Page. Now, I like these women. I really do. But their match at Battleground was disappointing. Sorry, not Battleground, Money in the Bank. See, that's how out of touch I am with WWE at the moment. I couldn't even remember what last month's pay-per-view was. Or was it No, wait, yeah, it was Battleground. Christ. Can't even remember the pay-per-view schedule. Whatever it was. Their match was crap, honestly. It had some decent spots, but they either just don't have chemistry, or I don't know what. It was just not their night. but it didn't deliver, as far as I'm concerned. Paige Naomi was better than this. Paige Naomi kind of set the standard for what a Divas match should be on pay-per-view. Hell, should be period, but mainly on pay-per-view. Outside of the NXT Divas matches I've seen, this is one of the best. That was one of the best WWE Divas matches I'd seen in about a decade. No lie. So the fact that AJ and Paige couldn't surpass that is kind of sad. So I'm hoping that it goes well this time around. AJ and Paige. God, who would win? You know, I'd say AJ. I think AJ will win, and I honestly hope AJ wins, just because I really don't like quick title changes. Like, sometimes they work, but sometimes they're necessary because the champion gets injured or quits or something happens, so they have to take the title off them. But I'm just not a fan of that. I don't think that everyone is entitled to at least 4 months. So 4 title defenses, really. Because WWE, let's face it, if they defend the title at all for over a span of 4 months, they'll at least be, on television anyway, 4 title defenses. 1 per month. So, you know, sometimes it's more often with lesser titles, but, you know, I think AJ should have it for a bit longer, then give it back to Paige. And really, those should be the only 2 women who hold it from now on, except for Naomi. Like, them 2, Naomi and Natalya. That's it. Maybe Emma. God, Emma versus Paige on a proper WWE pay-per-view. That would be amazing. Especially if they just let them go for like 10 minutes. That'd be great. Hell, I'm pretty sure they would give him more time than 10 minutes on one of the NXT pay-per-views. Jack Swagger versus Rusev in a flag match. I really don't care. This whole Rocky IV bullshit, I don't care. Maybe it's just because I'm not American. Well, you know, from the US. But I just don't care at all. Like, it's interesting to see the crowd behind Jack Swagger for like the first time ever, albeit in a very sort of 80s, early 90s way, where it's kind of racist, but not really, I guess, because Russians aren't like a race. Anyway. Even though, hell, Rusev is actually, like, fucking Bulgarian, so what's that? Who I think will win? Swagger. Who I want to win? Rusev, just so they can fuck with people. Because let's face it, it's SummerSlam. They all think that Swagger's going to be the one that wins it, and it's a fucking flag match. Who cares? But Rusev winning would be just kind of hilarious, because that crowd would go ape shit in the complete opposite way that they would for Swagger. So, well, really, and if they don't, then it just shows that this gimmick isn't working. So, I just hope they make Rusev more strike-based and not have him do like he kind of is, but you know what I mean. Like, his strikes interest me, but that's about it. He looks like a hobo. He needs a haircut. Says me. Okay, Brie versus Stephanie. This better be under 30 seconds. If this goes longer than 30 seconds, I will be pissed. If this goes longer than a full 2 minutes, I will be pissed. Even if it was just Brie Bella legitimately beating the fuck out of Stephanie McMahon, or vice versa, for 2 straight minutes. and they end up bruised and bloody. I don't care. It'll be a glorified cat fight, and I really hope that it only lasts about 30 seconds. Also, who do I think will win? Brie. Who do I want to win? Stephanie. Never thought I'd ever say that in my life, but I want Stephanie McMahon to win this match. Specifically so I can see her do a pedigree again, because surprisingly she's fairly good at that. I mean, she probably would have been trained up a bit by Triple H to do it properly, but, you know, the fact that she can do it at all when she's not a trained wrestler, you know, it's pretty cool. Like, you know, specifically do it decently. But yeah, that match, I've said a few times that there are matches that I don't care about. But it is physically impossible for me to give less of a fuck about Brie versus Stephanie. It is physically impossible for me to care less. Like, Stephanie McMahon, every match she's been in ever that I've ever seen has been total fucking shit. So the fact that people actually seem to be interested in this is hilarious. Like, if they're just going into it thinking, wow, this is going to be a great train wreck, then okay, fair enough. But I really hope that this does go under a minute. Or at least, if it does last a minute, not much longer than a minute. Because there are other things that they could have filled that time slot with. It's... Oh, and Sheamus isn't defending the United States Championship at all. Is he injured or something? Because he was on Raw, apparently. We go from Ambrose pretty much never defending it. Then Sheamus gets it. And he defends it quite, like, at least once or twice. And now he's not defending it on pay-per-views. Like, this is the second pay-per-view in a row he hasn't defended it. I like, yeah, the Intercontinental title's being defended, but, like, you know, if that's the case, merge the titles. That way you've only got to worry about the one thing. I honestly think they just keep the US title around in case they want to actually keep Night of Champions going. So it's like, oh, well, we need to fill up the card with title matches because that's the entire fucking point of the pay-per-view. So, really that pay-per-view should be scrapped anyway, but I digress. Bray Wyatt versus Jericho. Wow. I have mixed feelings on this one because Bray versus Jericho last month. Disappointing. But I think that's mainly because it was a match that I actually cared about and it just didn't deliver. So, like, I don't mind Jericho winning at, was it Money in the Bank? God, I'm terrible. The last pay-per-view, anyway. I didn't mind Bray losing. Bray losing clean, I kind of minded. But let's face it, it's Jericho. It's a fucking veteran. You can get away with that sort of shit. Now, if it was someone like a new guy, or Roman Reigns or someone beating Bray clean, then I'd be pissed. But Jericho, I didn't mind it all that much when Bray lost to Cena because at least Bray got to look good against Cena. This, in a way, it actually makes less sense, but I don't mind it either because Jericho is smaller than Bray. At least with John Cena, you could kind of argue that Cena is about the same size, muscle version of Bray's size rather than. But, I didn't really mind when that sort of thing happened, but I do want Bray to win. Who do I think will win? Bray. Who do I want to win? Bray. Because let's face it, Bray needs this win. Otherwise, there's no point. And honestly, I hope he wins the rubber match as well, because he needs some momentum. And he seems to have virtually lost most of it. So, because as much as WWE seems to love this character, they have no idea what the fuck to do with it. Outside of like a few things that they usually end up fucking up, they really don't know. I honestly think they should bring in guys like Raven and Jake Roberts as like guys that should specifically be tailored towards figuring out stuff for Bray to do and figuring out feuds he can have and all this shit. Like, there is a good basis for the Jericho feud, but it's like their match was just... I'm sort of hyped because of something that I was shown that was basically a face-to-face thing with Bray and Jericho. That was pretty cool to watch. But I'm not going to get my hopes up this time. Just in case. But, it's SummerSlam. It's the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. Wyatt and Jericho are hopefully going to pull out all the fucking stops. So, I really... And you know what? Since Rowan and Harper are banned from ringside, I honestly hope that this means that that was more of a setup for a new member joining. Because if there's one thing that this group needs to really be taken seriously, it's more members. I don't mean NWO that shit, where it ends up with like 20 people in it or something. I mean just, if it's supposed to be a cult, let's face it, that's essentially what it's supposed to be, a cult. Where's the other members? Like, this needs to be a full-blown faction. I guess they might be holding off on it because they've got the whole authority thing going. But let's face it, this could end up in like a scenario of Ministry of Darkness versus the Corporation. Only it's the Wyatt family versus the Authority. That would actually be kind of interesting, because Bray could still technically be healed, but be face because he's the lesser of two evils. Or just, hell, be flat out face for a while, just doing that, and then he goes off and does his own thing again and turns heel again. I think it would work, but excuse me, I'm tired. But yeah, sort of looking forward to it. But because the last match was disappointing, I'm not really getting my hopes up. Now, Cena versus Lesnar. Who do I want to win? Cena. And as far as who I think will win, I think it can go either way. I would honestly rather Cena retain, but pretty much purely because that way the title will actually get defended every fucking month. Like, unless Brock Lesnar gets more days put in his contract or some shit so he can actually show up, hey, okay. But, like, even fucking Batista, he wasn't really a part-timer. Like, he was a part-timer in the sense that he had a stint and then he was gone. Sort of like how RVD and Chris Jericho, they shop for everything they can, and then they go away. I give Batista credit for at least showing up every week. He only really ditched out so he could promote the Guardians of the Galaxy. So, he wasn't around until then. He left beforehand so he could do press conferences and fucking shit, I don't know. But anyway, and the funny thing is, with Lesnar Cena, they seem to be like, haha, there's absolutely no way Cena can beat Lesnar, even though he did recently. Well, recently is in at least like 2 years ago, but you get what I mean. And it was an Extreme Rules match. So if he can outlast Brock Lesnar in an Extreme Rules match, I'm pretty sure he can beat him in a normal one-on-one match. Especially since Brock is, let's face it, a shadow of his former self. He is slowed right down. This guy used to be a fucking machine. And now he's more like, well, okay, let's say, he went from being a very fast-moving, very quick, agile kind of machine to Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator. Still a powerhouse, but he now can't run. Essentially, his endurance is shot. Is basically my point. Or like, maybe it isn't, but he just seems to slow right down, cut a lot of moves that he used to use out of his moveset, to the point it's so sad that when he faced Triple H the first time, I kind of marked out that he did a fucking German suplex. Just because it was like, hey, that's something he actually used to do. But he used to do a hell of a lot more than that. He was a pretty good wrestler. So, it's kind of sad. Yeah, honestly, want and hope that Cena will win. And really, I think it could go either way. Which is amazing to actually be able to say for once in WWE. But, yeah. I really won't give too much of a shit whatever the outcome is, but if Lesnar wins and he's not on Raw the next night, that'd just be really hilarious and sad. Or just like, you know, I doubt they'd do that, but come on. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to be weeks where he isn't there. And it's like, they'd have to either add more dates or sign up a new contract that's got more dates. So he could actually be there consistently. Because he's just not there enough. So you'd have Heyman walking around with the fucking belts. And and no Brock Lesnar in sight. And that would just be really silly. And honestly, that's mainly the reason that I want Cena to win. I mean, I have nothing against Cena anyway. And Lesnar, I don't hate him, but I'm not necessarily a fan much or anymore anyway. Like, I'm a fan of his older stuff before he left, but his newer stuff, I'm pretty like, I haven't even seen the Cena Lesnar match from Extreme Rules like 2 years ago. But I've seen pretty much every other match he's had since he came back, and they're all crap. They are seriously all crap. So, like, hell, even his match in WrestleMania 30 against The Undertaker, I bet the only reason people even remember that is because Brock Lesnar won. Because that was, the only thing I remember is that he apparently hit 3 F5s at one point, just to win. And it's like, okay, yes, so I did that and beat the streak mode on 2K14. Who cares? I remember that more than I remember that match. So, And really, Cena needs really specific people to be good against, that actually bring out the best in him, like Jericho and even Bray Wyatt, Danielson, Punk. Danielson's injured, Punk's gone, and Bray and Jericho are feuding with each other, so Cena's kind of fucked. Well, hell, even Cesaro seems to bring the best out in Cena, so there's that as well. And he's dwindling on the undercard. So, a question I was asked was, would WWE need to do to win me back? Give me something to care about. That's my answer. They would need to give me something to legitimately care about. It's that simple. And even though that does sound like a simple thing, really, it's not. It's hard to actually get us. That's the funny thing. I'm easily entertained most of the time. But I also have a very short attention span, or at least not so much a short attention span as I'm... Okay. I just word it differently. I have... Let's see. Short attention span. God, I'm blanking on what I usually call it. Easily distracted is more what I call it, rather than short attention span. Because if I like something, I will pay attention to it. But if I don't, I'll just tune out. And there's really nothing. Even Wyatt Jericho, that first match soured me on the feud, basically. They're sort of winning me back, but only just. I'm not getting my hopes up anymore. I've just had it. I'm sick of having to get my hopes up. I really wish I could be like this one girl on Tumblr, she's an artist, and she just goes crazy over... You know what? The funny thing is she seems to be having the same fucking problem. She's going through like a drought where she just doesn't seem to care about anything that's going on in WWE at the moment. And she was fangirling over absolutely nothing, pretty much. Which is, it sounds cruel, but she was fangirling the way Doctor Who fangirls and all those kinds of Sherlock fans, and Sherlock fangirls and all that sort of react to stuff over pretty much what's nothing. And I admire her ability to be so easily amused, and technically, I can be very easily amused. I know people that have said that. Well, I'm very cynical, but at the same time, I'm easily amused. So if you do it right, then you're doing it right. If you can't amuse me or keep my attention, then you know you're doing something wrong. Especially since, as I said, I'm very easily distracted. So you need to give me something to latch on to. The only good match that they could have done isn't even on this fucking pay-per-view, which some people will probably be glad about. But Usos versus Harper and Rowan was the best thing about the last pay-per-view. I fucking loved that match. I was invested in that match. I didn't care who won, but I was invested. But I didn't care who won so much as I did actually legitimately go, yes! When the Usos won. But at the same time, if they had not won, I would not have cared because they put on the fight of their life. That match was fucking amazing. Probably the best tag team match I've ever seen in WWE, period. Not just recently, that's probably one of the best tag matches I've seen in WWE, period. All of their matches that I've seen together are great. And they're not on the Usos aren't on the card, period. That's another thing, WWE. You want to win me back? Make the Usos actually properly relevant. Give them a proper feud to work with. Yes, they were having matches with Harper and Rowan, but it wasn't really a feud from what I saw. It was just them going after the titles. And I don't care if it is just that simple as we want what you have. But it didn't really work with Hohen and Harper. Rowan and Harper. God. Because, well, come on, they're with Bray Wyatt. Would they really care about the titles? Unless it's a case of, I want it, so you can't have it. Which I'm not sure if they have actually brought that up. Maybe they did. If they did, tell me. But yeah, the Usos fucking card. That pisses me off. But, yeah, make the Usos relevant, WWE. Do something with the mid-card titles to make me care. Make the undercard interesting. Hell, make the main event scene interesting. Make your entire card interesting. Then maybe I'll care. And maybe I'll come back properly. Usually I try to keep up with SmackDown, but I haven't kept up with SmackDown for a few months. And I haven't cared that I haven't. That shows how much I have gone, not necessarily full on against WWE, but how much I'm drifting away from them. Because I went from someone who used to get pissed off when I was in high school and had finally found out what the hell wrestling was. I got pissed off when I missed Raw or SmackDown. Now it's just like, oh, I missed it. Oh, well. I mean, Raw I just don't watch, period, anymore. But SmackDown, it's like, oh, SmackDown's on, I missed it. Oh, well. Even if I miss Impact, I at least try to catch up. That's how much I actually care about TNA at the moment. I actually try to catch up eventually. Even if it's I go without watching it for a while and then I just marathon it in like one day or like over a few days just to catch up. SmackDown, I never bother catching up. If I miss it, I miss it. When I used to review SmackDown, I kind of couldn't afford to do that. But, you know, that was then, this is now. You know what, I'm just going to keep rambling if I keep going, so I'm just going to end it there. God knows how long I've been going on for. But yeah, SummerSlam. I really don't care. More like apathy slam. Burn. Yeah, that was actually very terrible, I know. You don't have to tell me. But it really has been a good while since I actually cared about SummerSlam, let alone any WWE pay-per-view period. But I will be watching for the simple fact I'm probably going to review it, and I swear to God that is probably going to be the only reason I watch it. I won't be watching it live, though. Because A, I really can't afford to pay for it. And B, I don't want to live stream it because, not because that's illegal or anything, but because live streams are a bitch. So I'm not going to be streaming it. I'm not going to watch it live at all, in any way, essentially. It'll probably be like a day after the pay-per-view, or two, that I watch it and review it. Whether it's written, and if it's written, I'll maybe give a link in the description here, or do like a really quick video with the link in the description or something. Or I'll do a video review, which is more likely. The amount of names I went through just for this alone, it's going to be hard to think of a name to go with the video. But or the actual SummerSlam review. I'm probably going to go with the one that I almost used this time, which I won't say, just in case I don't use it. But anyway, that's all from me. I have been Thomas Fireheart, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully, after SummerSlam.